So Donald Trump has been forced to restrain Netanyahu after Iran backed out of negotiations because Israel was planning to go and bombard Beirut. And now this is coming to us from Axios. So last night, Donald Trump and Netanyahu apparently had a very contentious conversation, right? So this is the Axios headline. You're effing crazy. Trump fumes and Netanyahu in a call on Lebanon. And summarizing Trump's remarks to Netanyahu, the US official said, and I quote, "You're effing crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your ass. Everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this, this being Israel's planned bombing of Beirut." And a second source briefed on the call said Trump was pissed and at one point yelled at Netanyahu, "What the F are you doing?" And the only reason Donald Trump ran and immediately called Netanyahu to tell him to back off after the Iranians backed out of negotiations is that as soon as the Iranians backed off, the price of oil shot up. Donald Trump felt a lot of pressure domestically, and so he had to give a call to Netanyahu and tell him to stop. Also, look at what's happening here. It is the Iranians that are dictating the terms of the deal and not the Americans. Now, let's look at how the Israelis are talking about this very contentious call that happened between Trump and Netanyahu. This is coming to us from the Israeli Channel 12, who say a source in the Israeli Prime Minister's team says reports about Trump personally warning Netanyahu about prison or saying he's hated worldwide are false. Okay, then it goes on to say the call was tense and focused on both leaders' complaints about each other's social media posts after their previous conversation. Okay, so then they say Trump felt Netanyahu's post implied the war was continuing at full intensity, while Netanyahu felt Trump's post suggested Israel had agreed to a ceasefire on all fronts. Trump did say it is becoming harder to defend Israel's position internationally. That part has been confirmed by the Israelis. So clearly the Israelis are trying to downplay whatever spat happened between Netanyahu and Trump and are trying to put forward a united front. And now Donald Trump is in damage control mode, trying to signal to US media that the deal with Iran hasn't collapsed. This is so that he could continue playing the markets and making money from them. So US President Donald Trump told ABC News on Monday he thinks he will have an agreement with Iran to extend the ceasefire and reopen the Strait of Hormuz over the next week. No word from Iran yet on that, of course. And then he went on to say, adding that a deal is looking good, while referencing today's spat between Israel and Iran over Israel's continued military operation in Lebanon, calling it a little glitch and stating, "So I spoke with Hezbollah and I said no shooting, and then I talked to Bibi, Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu, and said no shooting, and they both stopped shooting at each other. So we have peace now, right?" Except there isn't peace, of course, because Hezbollah officially rejects the US ceasefire proposal, calling it unacceptable, with sirens now sounding in northern Israel from active Hezbollah rocket fire, per Tasnim News in Iran. This directly contradicts Trump's false claim earlier today that he spoke to Hezbollah and they agreed to stop all attacks. Netanyahu has told Trump in their call that the moment Hezbollah starts attacking again, Israel will strike Beirut immediately, and Iran said that the response to any attacks on the Lebanese capital Beirut would be direct Iranian attacks on northern Israel, and that is what actually got Israel to stop their planned attacks against Beirut. And now both Israel and Hezbollah will be fighting in the southern parts of Lebanon. And it's always important to know what the Iranians are saying because it hardly ever gets covered in Western mainstream media. So this is directly from the account of Iran's Speaker of Parliament, Ghalibaf, who's playing a very important role in the negotiations. And his tweet says, "In my conversation with my brother, Mr. Nabi Berri, the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament, I emphasized that if the crimes of the Zionist regime in Lebanon continue, we will not only halt the dialogue process, but also stand firmly against them." And he did do that, right? And then ends by saying, "Long live the resistance, long live the defense of the motherland, long live the brotherhood of the Iranian and Lebanese people." So a show of strength from Iran and a show of weakness from Donald Trump, who's had to back off and restrain the mad dog Netanyahu. But the real reason why the US hasn't started bombarding Iran once again is because they're incapable of doing so, because the Iranian military is stronger than expected, right? As this is coming to us from the BBC, satellite images analyzed by BBC Verify indicate that Iranian strikes have damaged at least 20 US military sites across 8 Middle Eastern countries since the war began. The attacks hit air defense systems, surveillance aircraft, fuel depots, and communication infrastructure, causing billions of dollars in damages. Analysts say that the strikes appear more precise and extensive than US officials have publicly acknowledged. So this is absolutely humiliating for the United States, getting their ass kicked by a middle power like Iran while spending close to $1 trillion in their military, which the US does, of course. And I also wanted to share this because this is the White House that is being transformed into a UFC octagon that is going to face the White House. And it reminds me of how during the collapse of Rome, the Roman emperors would throw a lot of gladiatorial fights, bread and circus, to distract the audience from the crumbling state of the empire. And a very similar thing is happening in the US as well, where the White House is putting on this UFC fight, this gladiatorial event, while the US empire is literally being collapsed in the Middle East.